furniture futures. I'll give a first brief opening introduction to CESH, Circular Economy Student Hub, and then we will go into the panel discussion. We have guest speakers coming all the way from Rotterdam and Loosbroek, okay. But also local people from Wageningen. So thank you all for coming today, and also to the students, because for the speakers to know, this is study week, so students are preferring to come to this talk rather than studying for the tests. So thank you, students, for coming as well. So we're here at the Furniture Futures event. We are the Circular Economy Student Hub, CESH, and we are a team of about 6 to 8 people, some fluctuate. And I want, just so that we know each other, Laura, can you please raise your hand? Laura, Linda, Dew with the camera back there. Dave has come as part. I'll explain who Dave is in a second. He's also part of the team for the moment, and Teresa also helped us. What we're working on is, we want to really communicate the ideas of how to transition from the linear economy that we're now into the circular economy. And we do this by organizing events or lectures. Last year we organized the circular fashion event, and this year we decided to give a focus to furniture, and that's why we're all here. And why furniture? Well, in Wageningen, we're in a student campus. Students move in and out every day from their dorms, needing to furnish their new rooms. And not only that, the number of students has been increasing in Wageningen. So we wanted to give awareness to this situation and try to get inspiration from people here that are already doing really interesting stuff to improve these practices with furniture. And also in the context of the Wageningen campus, again, because the student number is increasing, more buildings are needed to be constructed. This is one of the new buildings that is coming here, exactly in this spot. So we would ideally like to have these conversations here and then elevate these ideas to higher decision-making levels. So that's why Furniture Futures came about. Again, to give awareness to students about their personal practices or relationship to furniture. Maybe you here are really motivated and want to do this for your professional track, or maybe find an internship, also for creativity and inspiration. And finally, to relate this to the campus expansion decisions. I do want to say, this whole event, I want to give full credit to Laura and Linda in the back. They had all the ideas behind this event, and I want to say that it all started because of a digital Facebook debate that they had amongst themselves. They were in different countries, and they were debating on, is IKEA circular or not? They each had arguments, pro and for. And that's how Furniture Futures was born. They said, let's create something, let's create a conversation to address this topic. So the first thing we did in April 17, we created a design thinking session about everyday objects with Paul Ronken, a Wageningen lecturer. So this was more philosophical day about thinking about objects. And today we're here, May 4th, where first we'll have a panel discussion with these wonderful speakers. They will be sharing their perspectives on the circular economy. And then we have a break, and then we have a hands-on do-it-yourself workshop by Dave. So he's a local-based artist in Wageningen, and we'll be creating a lamp from waste material. So it's a full program for today. We have lots of cookies to keep you energized. And now I'm going to, we're gonna start soon with the panel discussion. I'll briefly say who our speakers are, but then the speakers will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves. So first from Herso Circular Woodworkers, we have Rick Raugrok. Then from Wageningen University and Research, Petra. From Flokk, not Mario Lyon, she was coming, but now it's Marieke. Marieke, yes. And then from Emmaus, Jan Koning. So thank you all for being here. For the panel discussion, as I said, each speaker will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we have 40 minutes of panel questions, panel discussion. I'll be the mediator, and then we have 20 minutes for questions from the audience so that you can get your own answers responded by the speakers. So I'm going to switch off my presentation, and I think that we can start with Rick. I'll put the pictures that you gave me, and you can give your 5-minute pitch. Let's try please to stay in 5 minutes because we have a lot of questions. Okay. So I'll just loop. I'll just click in.
Well, hello, I'm Rick. I'm a furniture maker from Loosbroek, and we started our company almost 50 years ago. I took it over in 2000, skipped all the clients. You're young and you don't think a lot, and follow your feelings. And I irritated about waste, so I started working with it. And about 15 years long, everybody was pointing at his forehead, why is he working with waste? And at a certain moment I got to know a guy called Michel, and he was a millionaire trying to become a demolisher. And we cooperated because he is taking down buildings and reuses them for the 100%. And I was one of the first to start reworking his materials. And in a very short period, 3 years now, he was also on the stage with me. And the complete audience was laughing. And at the moment, he is seen as a danger for the complete building column. And we rework wood in a circular way. That means that we don't buy any materials for 18 years now. So everything in our workshop is from waste. It's from walnut of 12mm thick up to staircases, beams of ceilings, etc., etc. And we made tables out of it. And at a certain moment, Michel called me, "Can you make a floor out of waste?" Yes, I can. "Can you make a floor out of waste from 1600 square meters?" Yes, I can too. And so we made the first circular floor from waste in the Circle Pavilion in Amsterdam. And very recently there was a girl coming in my workshop, a designer. She had an idea and she had a nice exhibition within 2 weeks. If I would make a new floor with her, yes I would. It became a work of 60 hours in 1.5 weeks, mostly at night, and we made the second circular type of floor. In the meantime, I happen to know Niagara DSM. DSM is a Dutch factory, and they have a circular branch at the moment. It's called Niagara. That's reversed for again and again and again. And they make glue, which we can unglue in 40 years, in 10 years, or in 100 years. So you can take glue out of the product, and you've got your original materials. Together with that, we work with Acor, and Acor is a company, also circular, an American company, who is able to press leaves from a tree or grass from here outside or paper into a woodenish material without glue. Well, that put top on the side. We've got an underfloor from Acor, we've got the glue from DSM, and we've got the top floor from our waste material, which we can reuse over and over and over again. And I just told Jan from Emmaus that we are starting at this moment with people who normally don't get a job, people who are disabled or 50 years or older. That's also a problem in this country. And they start to do the low-grade work, such as taking out nails, glass, demolishing furniture in proper-sized material for me. And we're going to integrate them in our system. 1 minute. Okay. We've just started 3 shops in Rotterdam, Alkmaar and Raamsdorp-Veer, and at the end of the year we will have 50 shops run by those people and filled with products that are circular. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Rick brought this. Is it okay if I put it on the table and then people can check it out? It's a sample of the making.
So now well, Britta, I'll put your presentation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Petra Alten. I work in the library, the University Library of Wageningen. And I think we have a table of Herso in our library. I recognize it on the pictures. And if you're familiar with the library, it's in the pantry, which is not public accessible, but you can see it from the library behind the glass wall. I'm not an expert on circular furniture. I'm just a project leader who happened to do a renovation project which happened to choose for circular furniture. That's why I came acquainted with it. Last year we renovated the Forum Library. We had several goals, but our main goals were wanted to increase the study spaces. As you as students might know, there's sometimes a lack of study spaces, so we wanted to increase them. So we stripped out the books, most of the books. We decreased the office space for the staff, and we had a lot of extra places to study. And we increased the number of study spaces from 500 to 650. And while we were doing that, we wanted to do this as circular as possible, given budget and time restraints, because our budget was limited. Of course, every budget is, but also our time was limited because there was very less time between the go-ahead from the management and when we wanted to start it with the renovation. So we didn't have time to do a lot of research, and that's why we couldn't do as much as we wanted to do, but we tried to make the most sensible choices. What we did, and that's still the previous slide, we had a few principles. We wanted to reuse the existing furniture when possible. So don't throw anything away that's still usable. If furniture was redundant, we wanted to have it removed in a circular way. So not for the buyer who offered the most money, but the buyer who had the best story of what would happen with the furniture. And when we had to buy new furniture and carpet, we took circular principles into account when deciding what to buy.
Okay.
These are a few examples of what we did in the library renovation. On the left-hand side, you see the landing desk. And all the wood we used in the new library is rubber wood. And rubber wood is made from rubber trees, which comes from mainly Asia and Southern America. And normally rubber trees are used to make rubber, to yield rubber, but they become redundant after 30 or 25 or 30 years, and then normally they are set to fire. And now they are reused into wood and shipped to the Netherlands and other countries, and so we decided to use rubber wood wherever possible. On the right hand side you see our library offices, and we had to buy a lot of new furniture for that. And what we did in the request for tender for the office furniture, and maybe Marijke can tell us a lot more about it.
Well, this is our chair.
Is it? Yeah. Oh, we bought it at another company. Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So everything comes together. Herso and our Gispen chair.
Yeah.
What we did, we supplied our the suppliers with a huge Excel sheet with lots of questions about materials, production methods, staples or glue weren't allowed. I think you are going to tell us a lot more about it. And certain materials like formaldehyde, I think I have to say, wasn't allowed. No child labor. It had to be easy to take the chair apart after its life cycle, etc. And when we choose a supplier for our library chairs and desks, these aspects were 90% of our decision, and only 10% of the decision was the price.
Okay.
Well, it's not a limited price. We set a maximum price in our request for tender. Well, that's it.
Okay.
So
Thank you
that's
very
how
much.
we.
We will invite Ian to do the introduction.
Okay, I'm Jan Koning. I'm working with Emmaus Wageningen, which is one of the second-hand shops in town here. I got to Wageningen 40 years ago when I became a student at the university here. I did tropical land use, specialized in tropical soils. I did field work in different countries like Tunisia, Spain, Kenya, Paraguay. So I traveled a lot. I've seen many airplanes. Then I got to work for the Department of International Cooperation in, where did I go to? I would say Sierra Leone, Pakistan and Togo. The last one, Togo, I did for the FAO, for the United Nations. And then afterwards, I decided I would rather stay home because I had seen, well, many places, many institutions, and my personal focus is more on cooperate with people. And the work with all these government institutions, I didn't like it very much because of bureaucracy, as well as local problems because of mostly underpaid staff that are also undermotivated. So it's quite difficult when you're from abroad and have to work with these people when they are unmotivated. So I decided to stay closer to home and try to do more on the cooperation thing. So I switched to Emmaus here in Wageningen. Emmaus, well, has a clear emphasis on working with people. Of course, we work with goods, but we use it as a means to work with people. But of course, we are all day long we are busy with handling goods. We collect goods, we sort it out, we throw it away, we sell it. That's our main job. We want to give back value and dignity to people we work with by selling these goods and work with the people who are coming to Emmaus. And those people mostly are also more or less redundant in the normal economy here. So they are mostly older guys or more or less disabled or whatever. Emmaus here is organized locally. We are an independent foundation. We have 7 employees and about 25 volunteers. In Netherlands there are about 20 Emmaus communities, both as well as workers only Emmauses. So here in Wageningen we have workers only, but there are also Emmaus foundations who have a full community with people living there and working there. We are a member of Emmaus International. It's original from France. There are about 300 Emmaus communities worldwide, most of them in France. Now, is Emmaus part of the circular economy? Well, yeah. What we do mainly is extend product lifetime. So people bring all kind of goods to us and we try and sell them. But I must say, maybe 50 to 80% we cannot sell. We will throw it away. And part of what we throw away is being reused in another way, like metal or clothing, or part of the wood may be reused as well. I'm not sure, because I think it's mostly burned as because it's mostly chipwood and it's not really valuable. By being a second-hand shop, I think we also more or less facilitate the throw-away economy we are living in. So this is maybe a point for discussion, because it makes it easy for people to throw things away. Oh, you bring it to Emmaus, they will do something good with it. Well, I will tell you, you throw away most of it.
And now, Marijke.
You go through it?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Hello, I am Marijke de Roo, and I'm working for Flokk. And Flokk is a family of strong brands. We call it the house of brands of 5 leaders in office chairs manufacturers. So we have the brands Hawk, RH, BMA, Offect, and RBM in our program. This is actually where we are present in the world. Together with the 5 brands, we are at least Europe's leading chair manufacturer company, and well, the aim is to become in 5 or 10 years' time world's largest manufacturer of office chairs. And this is actually the factories for the different brands. Mostly in Scandinavian, as our roots are in Scandinavian. And we are actually, Switzerland is also now with us. But we are, as I told you, actually the leader in high quality brands office chair. With a Scandinavian heritage, we come from Norway. And if you push one further, then you see this lovely little town, Røros, somewhere up in the mountains at, let's say, more or less half in Norway. It's a beautiful UNESCO little town with a huge factory and with what we call actually a mine, coal mine history. And when the mine was closed in the 70s, then the government of Norway, they subsidized companies who wanted to go over to Røros, and Flokk, as a small actually chair manufacturer, was one of them. So they went to Røros, and nowadays Flokk is the biggest employer is the word, the biggest employer of this beautiful little town. And it's always nice, of course, to bring people to this town. But most important, why I choose for this picture actually, is that it also illustrates the culture that we are coming from. And I must say that I'm very proud of working for a Scandinavian company, as circular economy or sustainability or environmental way of thinking is in their genes, is in their blood. And it's not a marketing issue, it's not just following the trends, they are really trend-setting. And if you a little bit follow the culture of the country and also the nature, the landscape of the country, you also understand why. And therefore I choose for these pictures. They say more than 1,000 words. So actually, when I came with this company, and that's many years ago, somewhere in the 90s, we already had an environmental manager in the board, which was really strange in that times. And it was by then, we already had a company of 200 or 300 employees, so one of the bigger chair manufacturers. But with this environmental manager in the board, it really made us trend-setting on environmental issues. And I very well remember that this guy was dismissed in his function because he was a very active activist of Greenpeace. And at the time he was more chained with ships against the wolf officer. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Then that he was really working for Flokk. But this says something about what we are coming from. Thank you. The cornerstones, actually, our design philosophy is based on 4 cornerstones. It's all about quality. It is about dynamic ergonomics. We people, our body is not made for sitting still so many hours as we do today. So what we try to do is to develop chairs in which you are stimulated to move on a natural way without having to think about it. It's the visual design, and of course it is the sustainability, what we now call the circular economy. This is where we are here, not here, but where our premises is here in the Netherlands. I would like you to come to us and see what we do and what we make. And then we go to one of the major cornerstones, which is of course the circular economy. And everything we do is from the 5 eco-design criteria we developed ourselves. And that means actually that all products we make are all based on those 5 issues. So we try to make light-weighted chairs with only few components, choice for the right materials, like no use of chrome or glue or that kind of thing. So long lifespan, I guess that is one of the main aspects of circular economy and circular design, and a closed life cycle. With the focus areas, well, you saw on the right, maybe we come back to that later in the panel discussion. And we do that, and we pay so much attention to it because 95% of the total carbon footprint of a chair is determined actually in this design phase and the production phase of the chair. Only 5% of the product's total carbon footprint is coming out from the use, you could say, and the transport of chairs. So it's very important what materials you choose, for example. And then we have a lot of certifications, and it is a jungle. And we choose for, it's really a jungle, and we choose for some international certificates. And this is in 1990, the first environmental manager I told you about. This is the lifeline, you could say, the timeline from our environmental history. And then we, for example, were awarded with this chair. It's a chair for sit-stand tables, very popular also with architects because of its form. And it was rewarded in 2015 as the best plastic product. And that is really a big award for a chair like this, or for a product like this. So now this says enough, I guess, and this is Flokk, and I would very much like to continue talking about circular economy, not only about the production and the materialization, but also what can we do, for example, with our chairs after the first use of it. And we have a lot of plans, ideas, and showcases, and nice to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I would like to invite you, the panel members, to the chairs. And we'll go ahead and start with the panel discussion. We want to have a juicy conversation of all that you discussed. And just in case there is water there, it's
Thank
not
you.
as close, but feel free to. So the first question I'd like to ask is to Rick again. First presentation and first question. The question is, because you really provide a tangible example of what a good circular economy practice is. You use waste, wood, and upcycle it, convert it into something with much more value. And my interest is because you said you started this 18 years ago. What was that initial spark? What problem did you notice, or what need did you notice at the time that made you say, I want to do this?
It's getting children. If you become a father, you are going to think about your responsibilities to your children, to your heritage, and to your future. And I'm actually one of the, how do you call it in English? In Dutch we say comofiel.
I don't even know the Dutch word.
Nee.
Comofiel is that Dutch word. A como, you've got a garbage bag, it's called a como bag. And it's a kind of combination between two things. We were allowed as children from 8 years old to go out of our beds on Wednesday morning in the Hague at 4:30. That's the day that the large pieces can be thrown down the road, and they are collected that morning. And my father worked as a journalist, and he finished working at 5:30. So I posted my brother on the largest piles of nice furniture. My father came with his Citroën Ami, and we loaded in all the cupboards. My mother restored them, polished them, and sold them again. And we actually bought our first house from that money. My grandfather smoked his whole life, and he never bought any tobacco. The only thing he did was he bought the fluitjes, the papers for cigarettes, and he picked up the old smoke from people. And then, it's called bukshack in Dutch. And he was a carpenter, and he never bought any nails. He picked them straight. And in that opinion, I don't throw away anything. So it just starts somewhere. You don't become a circular business from one day to another. I mean, at this moment, I've got 400 cubic meters of high precious wood in my workshop, which is not bought. So if you want to start a company like me, you need a lot of capital, knowledge, machines, and space. And that's all money, 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 money. So if if you start that right away, you need probably 2 or 3 million. But if you start it next to your normal linear company, and slowly on you make the amount of circular products larger and larger and larger, and suddenly there's the clash in the economy. Zeg dat eens?
Yeah.
The clash in the economy in the
Recession,
recession in 2010 made my customers bought my furniture, only they needed 5 months or 6 months to pay me. And if I called, they said, yeah, it's coming in slowly, 100 euros a week. I said, yeah, if it's coming slowly to you, why doesn't the money come slowly to me? And then the idea came, well, what if I start renting my furniture? I mean, it doesn't matter me if it's in my workshop against the wall or in your office against the wall. And if you pay me per day, so it was a nice idea. And then my wife said, yeah, okay, that's nice. So if we sell 100 tables a month, we get about 300 euros. Where do I pay my staff from? Yeah, that's a little problem. And then someone said, you need to go to Jan Jonker. Jan Jonker is the only Dutch professor of circular economy in Nijmegen. And I called him, and he just formed his new team for his new book. And a year later I thought, Jan Jonker. So I called him, and he just reformed another team. I said, well, I'm going to join you, because if I don't join you, your whole examination is worthless. He said, I don't risk my career, I come over. And I joined his team. And then it seemed that I already was circular for 15 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess that what you said about Scandinavian people, first, from your story, it seemed that circularity was also really in your genes of your family.
No, actually it's in all your genes, because your grandfathers did it. Nobody threw away food. 50 years ago, it was very normal to have restjesdag, remains day. All the cooked food from 3 days before were put in a pan and boiled. That was normal. My family had clothes which were turned sometimes 2 or 3 times, because the inside wears less, so you turn the fabric and you've got a new trouser. And that was normal. Nowadays you wear a trouser and some trousers even can't be washed.
Yeah. Well, that's in clothes, that's what we discussed last year in the circular fashion. Okay, now I have a question for Petra. I'm interested in the process with the Wageningen library. Who had the idea of incorporating the circularity principles to this renovation? Was this something like initiated by the higher Wageningen board or by you as the project lead?
Well, it wasn't my idea, to be honest. The Forum Library is part of the Forum building, so Forum management was in charge of the whole refurbishment, and the Forum manager was interested in circular purchase of furniture.
Okay.
So she told us that she wanted to use it as a pilot to see what was possible.
Okay.
And at the same time, we, for instance, we hired an interior architect because of her design skills, but she was also into sustainable design.
Okay.
So
it was
those
a good
two
alignment.
met each other and they had a click, and that was the idea to use the library as a pilot. And well, I thought it was a sympathetic idea. In my personal life, I try to be as sustainable as possible. I have solar panels on my roof. I buy green power if possible. So things like that. So I like the idea. So and together we continued it. But at the same time, from in higher levels at the university, they told us not to go as quick as we did because the university wasn't quite ready for it.
Okay.
It wasn't general university policy to buy circular furniture.
Okay.
Why not?
Interesting for
Why not?
They didn't have a policy yet. Things go slow at the university.
You need
So they need to. Sorry?
You need a form, or you need a structure to be able to do it.
Yeah, they need a committee to discuss it, they need to write a lot of reports, so it was a bit too fast for the whole university.
The library is the first example of circular furniture procurement in work.
As far as I know, they are, but I don't know all projects, so maybe there's some other projects as well.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you had this spreadsheet in Excel with all the different criteria, and that is the one you sent to suppliers.
Yes, for the office furniture.
For the office furniture.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit of what the criteria were, like in short, and also how easy was it to find suppliers that were aligned with these criteria?
We used the sheet that was also used for the Wageningen City Hall. Yeah. They were kind of example for us because they are very circular. We went there to look, and we had this. We used their consultant. They had an external consultant to guide them through the whole process, and we used the same consultant. So he gave us the spreadsheet.
This was Rendement?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, we were trying to get Rendement as well, but and they mentioned.
Wij zitten wel een beetje zo, ja.
Yeah. I just looked this morning at the spreadsheet because it was a year ago.
Yeah.
And it has criteria for material use. Some materials were allowed and some materials weren't, like staples or glue. Also how it was assembled in a way, because it has, you should be able to reassemble it, disassemble it after its life cycle, so you should be able to take it apart very easily into separate materials. Also, if they were prepared to buy it back from us when we didn't need it anymore, and how much they would pay after 5 years or after 10 years.
Okay.
We also had a question about child labor, because it can be very circular, but if little children in Vietnam or Asia are working on it, we still don't want to have it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, these were the criteria on that.
Okay.
And I think there were about 30 or something.
A lot of criteria.
And as a follow-up question to you, Marijke, you were also a supplier of the forum library, so you did meet the criteria or some. You mentioned, I really liked, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on this, but I also saw in your website the principle of durability, and you mentioned it for long lasting. Can you comment further on this, about how this is incorporated in your furniture, and maybe also how if it is linked to the Scandinavian culture, like maybe in other cultures we're more used to fast fashion or fast things, and maybe you can give a little bit more what you have learned from Nordic cultures. Do they use things longer?
Nice question, very nice question. Yeah, I guess so. I guess they do, and I guess that has everything to do with indeed the culture, what they are coming from. Everything depends on what we are coming from, like your story says as well. And if you look at, for example, at Norway or Scandinavia, it's of course little people, but it's enormous country, cold, a lot of mountains, so not easy to live in, also not an easy climate. So the things you work with, they have to work, and they have to work for you, and they have to be stable. So the quality is very important of the things you work with, because you can't, you need to rely on it, and you also need to rely on each other. So it's also about working together, collaboration between the people. That is really a thing in Scandinavia I would say actually much more alive than we know it here from our own culture. So indeed, quality is a very important thing, and that means, for example, well, let's give you a practical example. We still sell chairs to ABN AMRO Bank, it's our biggest customer, and we sell them already for 10-15 years, our standard chairs. And now we were the first manufacturer that gave 10 years full warranty on the whole chair. So not only on some elements, but on the whole chair. And now, for example, there is a bank somewhere in the north of Holland with 1,500 chairs. Well, actually the chair was finished. There were all coffee things on the fabric. So they asked us, what should we do? Should we buy new chairs? Because the chairs are from 2006, so which means 12 years old. Or what can you do with it? And we revitalized the chairs only by using new fabric. And what we also did was we upgraded the chair a little bit, which means that it had a low back. So now we replaced the low back by a high back. And we took back the 1,500 low backs to, in this case, to Rotterdam. And we had all that plastic. But because the chairs were by then already prepared to disassemble, yes. It was very easy for us to find a partner, Tribu. I guess you know them?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah? Oh, okay.
I'm not a fan
we'll
of
talk
them,
later.
But
Oh, okay, man. But at least we found a partner for it, also a partner from ABN AMRO Bank. And what they did is they are also collaborating with some other designers and producers. So what they did, they made they pressed all the plastic into a sort of a plate, and then they designed furniture like tables and chairs. And the bank is, for us, it's a wonderful customer and a wonderful launching customer. They bought back the banks, the circular banks for the bank, and tables, and you now use that in a circular way, among others in the circle, where you also.
Yeah, what's
So
very
you did
important. The
your
ABN has made a pot of money of 1 billion euros for the circular economy. So if there's a circular startup, you can get money over there.
Okay.
And they also have the system behind it to get those startups. A startup needs to learn the whole job. For instance, these are running trains. So if we got to involve something new, we do it. But if a startup it goes very slow. And they contact those startups with branches or businesses which already do run. And they finance them.
Yeah.
And that's a very good, because the Rabo talks about it, but it doesn't do anything.
No.
So, for example, a startup will be put in contact to collaborate, with, for example, Herso, so that they can both cross-pollinate of ideas, I guess. Yeah. I saw something about open innovation, like a slide about open innovation, and it says this, like, normally you have this stream of research and development that goes in one company, it's just like one funnel shape, but now by incorporating these more random
it's
pieces,
really getting a network.
getting
That's what she told. If your design is good, that's why the Norwegians buy a little amount of furniture. They buy a good chair, which looks good, sits good, because the winters are long over there. That's very important. So they buy a nice piece of furniture, as our grandfathers did. They bought only one piece of furniture, and they did with it for 55 or 60 years. I know people of my age who've got their 8th or 10th interior, complete interior. If you rethink about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely different.
Yeah, and that's why he's got so busy.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe, also to start the transition to Jan, because let's say that's why I love panel discussions, because we can get behind the scenes of stuff that you don't read in the newspaper. But let's say before coming to this panel discussion, what I was going to tell you and of Emmaus is that I see Emmaus as this like connector for us students. Well, first of all, to incorporate the audience a little bit, can you give a raise of hands of how many have gone to Emmaus to buy furniture?
Nice.
So, yeah, it's a really, like for the people not from Wageningen, it's a really connecting place, like all students go there to buy pieces of furniture or clothes or something. So I guess that from our side, I really feel identified with Emmaus, both because I can give my objects as, you know, when they reach the end of life, but also I can source new objects that are starting, for example, second life cycles or second use cycles. So I see like Emmaus as this connector and also for the community. But you posed a really interesting argument of, is Emmaus a promoter of the throwaway culture? So I wanted to listen to more comments on this, like
Yeah, I think we are not promoter, but one of the facilitators of the throwaway economy. Like here in Wageningen you have the afvalbrengstation, which is the place where people can bring their stuff which they don't use anymore. It's free of charge. You only need to have the pass that you're an inhabitant of Wageningen. You can bring as much as you like, so without any cost. And this is also a facilitator of the throwaway economy. And you see now and then in some other cities that they try and make it more expensive or dependent on the type of thing you want to throw away, but this is very difficult. But the main problem, of course, is they want to have sorted it out in types of material. And when people have to pay for the garbage, they don't. They put their garbage in one of these compartments for sorted out goods. So this is why it's not working. And
They don't feel it.
no, they don't
Nee.
feel it. They don't care.
Ja.
They just want to
It's too
throw
easy.
it away. Like you say, every 10 years they want a new interior, so they bring the old one. They ask, "What do you want?" Because we will take a new interior. And
yeah, yeah.
we put away the brown things. We now go for black and white, like that.
I
So
guess that it,
we are a
it
kind of
depends.
facilitator.
But also it depends on how you see it, because also, for example, if you saw all the raise of hands, all these people have found new furniture that they could have bought in companies, and they didn't. They went to Emmaus.
Yeah.
So I guess
Sure.
that here we can get like, you know, if you get into the numbers of the percentages.
Yeah, but those people are not the average Dutchman. That's the problem. Those people have gone to school. I talk to a lot of people who like to go to McDonald's 2 times a week, and really, but the whole family, and when they're finished eating, they drop out the garbage on the road and drive off. That's the same people who go to the IKEA, buy a piece of furniture, and the next year they go to the Milieustraat, drop it off, and that's about 70% of the Dutchmen. And those people are people who are trained to use their brain, I hope. And well, if they're an example, that's nice. But now, how do we get the rest of Holland so far that they're gonna adapt in the same way and act?
So you don't think that, for example, second-hand stores, because, for example, I'm from Costa Rica, second-hand stores are really not present, or very few. But here, I see in a lot of cities, I see a lot of second-hand
Yes.
stores. So I see it more present in the Dutch culture, comparative to Costa Rica. So yeah, I guess that, you know, again, it's a matter of perspective, but wouldn't you say that people in other cities also go to second-hand stores?
Yeah, they do. I think in Holland it's more accepted to go to a
Yeah.
second-hand store compared to when you go to Africa.
Yeah.
You hardly see it because people are ashamed of it to go to a second-hand store. And in Holland it's more common and normal and becomes even more common. Also because of TV programs on, we had a TV series last Christmas, around Christmas, which was very popular, about second-hand stores. And well, the main argument for many people, of course, is it's cheap. It's much cheaper than new, and it's nearby, which is also a very important argument to go to a second-hand store. You may like to go to IKEA, but you have to go to Duiven,
Yeah, true.
which is far away.
That's the other way actually. If you have to pay for the hidden costs, for example IKEA, then everybody should go to Emmaus. But IKEA uses 63 million cubic meters of wood every year, which they mix with 63 million kilos of formaldehyde, and within 4 years, it's dumped on our waste bins. They don't pay tax anywhere in the world. They get industrial pieces for nothing in any city, because if you say, hey Wageningen, do you want 2 IKEAs? Then the mayor says, yeah, come. And a very simple thing, I had a driver in my backyard for 6 weeks, a Romanian guy. He works only for IKEA. He gets paid per kilometer. So if he's in a queue, he don't get paid. If his car breaks down, he don't get paid. And IKEA gave him the wrong ETA. So he had 6 weeks to wait for a boat in Rotterdam. And he had no money, no food, and he got 450 euros a month. He's home in Romania for 4 days in the year, and 1,500 drivers are driving for IKEA in the whole Europe. Well, if you imagine that, that's circular. It's not circular in the next 50 years.
No.
And if they should pay the hidden costs in their product, then no one should buy it. But that's the problem. If I buy a table in China, for instance, I won a competition in furniture in Utrecht. There's the Knoop. There's an old building in the middle of Utrecht, and they rebuilt it. And next to it, there's a circular building from the remains of the Knoop. With the opening, someone said, "Hey, Mr. Gispe, those tables which were made by handicapped people, where are they?" That and that, I think. Oh, that's strange. Well, there are stickers from the KLM underneath it. They were flown in. For the hurry, we need to deliver something that looks handmade. Yeah, if you imagine what it costs to transfer, and really there are people who deliver furniture by plane at the moment, for it's so busy in the shops. Yeah, you've got to wait for a bench for 16 weeks now. They need to be produced outside of Europe, then brought over here, and if it's not quickly enough, they put it in a plane. Then we earn nothing, but we can deliver. We don't have the cost of reclamation.
Yeah.
Losing lands.
I have a question related to transportation and logistics. And this is transitioning into more the end of life of products. So, Jan, you also mentioned that you deal with collection of the furniture or of the items that you get from Emmaus. How challenging is to coordinate these logistics?
Well, it's a daily routine, so we only pick up items here in Wageningen or nearby, like the Bennekom, Renken, so it's not really complicated. We do it twice a week, so every week we have about 15 addresses or 20 maybe to pick up goods.
Yeah.
But we don't take everything, you know.
Yeah.
We just go by and we see if it's okay for us, for our shop, we will take it.
Okay.
But they deliver, yeah?
Delivery we do as well, but this is to collect things. People.
For the students who leave, for
Yeah.
instance, do they gather it for you here in the university or?
No. We just visit people at home.
Because, well, also for the audience, one really important question that many companies in the circular economy are having is how to deal with these reverse logistics of how do you collect the items that are scattered in people's houses and collect them to repair them to extend the life cycles.
I've got a circular traveler. He's a driver from a van, and he collects things for me or brings them away. The only thing I can't handle is when he is going to collect, because he is going to an address when he's close by and when he's got the space in his van. It's strange, but it works, and it's much cheaper because I don't have to pay the travel to the address. I only have to pay from that address to me. And it happens that he doesn't show up in 3 weeks and then 4 days in a row. And then I've got 20 cubic meters of wood.
Okay.
He's in one of the slides.
We can find him later.
Yeah.
And Marijke, because I also read that you incorporate some service models to handle these cradle-to-cradle life cycles of furniture. Can you elaborate a little bit more on this, this as how suitable is the furniture to disassemble or to repair or to refurbish, and how you communicate this to customers?
Yeah. That's a big question.
Okay.
with a huge answer, and also a lot of questions for ourselves. And what we try to do, what we think now at this moment is most important, is to keep the chairs alive. And because if you are going to do something with it, that is costing something, energy or material or whatever. So if it stays a chair, that would be best, of course, and use it as a chair, preferably at the same place, because then you also don't need to transport, etc. So what we set up, like I told you, the example of ABN AMRO, is that we have a very we have set up a revitalization, not company but
Department? Yeah, organization or?
yeah, organization, yeah, part of the yeah. And so we revitalize a lot of chairs at this moment. So that has become actually a new business model for us, which is very easy and very good to do, because our chairs, they were already prepared for a long lifespan, and that of course is something that is extremely important, because what we also see is that most chairs after 10 years you can't use them anymore, because all the elements are broke or damaged, or I guess you see them back. And
yeah, it's always
most of them are not.
The wheels are broken, or
exactly.
the gas cylinder.
So quality pays
off. Yeah.
Pays off. That is
And
for sure.
how engaged are the customers to reach out back to you whenever they need to undergo a change? Like, do they really follow up, or do you have to be behind them? Like, hey, your chair is reaching 10 years, don't throw it away, can we repair it?
Yeah, that depends on the customer.
Yeah.
And it's very nice working together with customers like you and like the City Hall of Wageningen, because then there's a true mindset and a true belief in the circular economy. But what we see a lot, I'm looking at you as a partner in crime, but what we see a lot with customers is that they use it as a marketing thing, or they ask you to do things with the old furniture which are not reasonable, or they want you, like Random Int, for example. We can talk for hours about some questions we get, but also questions from customers that we, if we can deliver the new chairs, we are also responsible to take back the old chairs, and then we have to set up a complete plan how to do that in a responsible way, etc., etc. And I don't think that you can put all the responsibility That's what we see. That's what we see a lot, that there's put too much responsibility with the suppliers,
Okay.
and customers
Well,
are
it's
not
not too
always.
much. It's not too much responsibility on the suppliers. It's too much in the short time span.
Yeah.
If they get the time to solve the problem,
Yeah.
the problem for me is easy. It's wood. It's only wood and concrete.
Okay.
But she's got a chair with plastic, with fabric, with foam, with steel, with wheels, with bearings, fat, etc. That's about 8 or 9 sorts of materials. I'm absolutely convinced that they are able to make a completely circular design, 100%, which they can take back and reuse endless. It needs time. For instance, my sawdust went to a friend of mine, and he mixed it with old cookies, old bitter lemon at the end of the holiday, which they couldn't sell anymore, anything that contains sugar. And what did he do with it? He poured bacteria in it. And they ate the sugars and they shit out alcohol. And he collected the alcohol, it was pure alcohol, which he could deliver to the industry. And the remains he got was really patented cat box filling. You couldn't smell it for 6 weeks because it's alive. It eats the urine, so it breaks down the urine before it can form ammonia. And I thought, well, that's a wonderful idea. The rest is compost. And then we had the Dutch Design Week last year, and there was a professor coming up, and that lady told us, you're doing it the wrong way. You should make milk acid out of it. If you make milk acid out of it, you can. It's a basis for PLA, for plastics,
Yeah.
which you can print or which you can put in a machine to make chair seatings, for instance.
Yeah.
But I had a customer, Vepa, in the north of Holland. He came to me 14 months ago, and he said, I've got a problem. I've got 850 tons of wood remains. But it's fiberboard, MDF. And I said, yeah, I'm amazed. I mean, you've got a simple process with simple machines, with a simple product, but you use it simple too. That's stupid. And he said, yeah, you need to help me. I said, well, are you on the fair tomorrow? Yes, I'm going there. He said, there's someone in your company who had the brains, and we made a table out of your waste. So he was there the next day. There was a table made out of MDF, a total mixture of all kinds of furniture from the office. In October last year, I needed 2,000 tons of sawdust for a circular product. And I was called by Michel from, hey, I need your sawdust. Yeah, I know, but someone else is picking it up. And, but what do you need it for? Yeah, for lightweight concrete. So I thought, let's call Vepa. I'm gonna get him rid of 400 tons already. And I called him up, I said, I don't have waste anymore. I've got a new process, but if you got 2,000 tons extra, you can always bring it. Well, that's fantastic. In a year, in less than a year, he solved a problem. It's not the best solution which he has, but it's a good solution because now it's not burnt anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice story.
I have a final question for Petra, and then I transition to the audience questions. And the question for Petra is how important, so the circular library renovation is like an example we can all relate with and see. And the question is, how important do you think is this practice, is this example for the transmission of circular practice, so for knowledge sharing or for the image of Wageningen, and so like what are the role of these projects and how do they help transfuse the knowledge circulation?
I think it is important because first, the library is a public place, everyone can go there and see how it looks. So it's not a hidden office which you can only access with your work card.
Yeah.
So it's a visible example, and also because the manager of the forum building, which I mentioned before, is now also working with the new education building, and you mentioned which is going to be here, and the experience he had with in small scale with circular furniture in library, she can now use in this big education building.
Yeah.
And she's also using it as a case for other location managers to share their experiences.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
the building going to be circular too?
I don't know, I'm not involved in that.
The new building, we don't know. We don't
I
know
don't
for
think
sure,
so.
but that's why I
Do you
said
want it to be circular?
Yes, and that's why we're having this conversation, because we would.
I've got the materials for it.
Well, it's also a networking space, exactly.
No, we've got, it's only notified next week. The profile is in 3 weeks then. We've got a machine, it's patented, which demolishes the concrete and makes it again to gravel, sand and cement. The only thing you need is water and you got new concrete.
Okay.
That's really an innovation.
Yeah.
And for instance, the beams where you throw the cables in, we've got about 18 kilometers of them. And really we've got the whole material. You even don't have to buy the materials. So you can have to build just the working hours and you rent the materials for 60 or 70 years.
But I wonder, does the university have a sustainability protocol?
Yes.
That's
They
what
do.
we-
They do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Wageningen is calls itself a very sustainable university, and it also gets a sustainable award with BULL awards every year for the most sustainable university around the world. Yeah.
Around
So
the
it's
world.
it's high on the agenda of Wageningen University. That's why I was so amazed that when we decided to do our wanted to have our furniture and carpets circular, that they were not very enthusiastic about it. Because for a university that calls itself sustainable, it's strange. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So now I want, thank you for your answers for the moment. Ask the audience for questions. What do you want to know more from them? Who has the first question?
I think it's kind of like a root cause question or a situation, because you were talking about, you know, a place that supposedly is maybe a link of creating the circular economy, might be the enabler of the waste economy as well. You were talking about education as well. Well, Petra with education too. Like, the economy right now is about like creating jobs and creating like people that can produce production, and people in the circle, basically in the hamster wheel. Like, how much of that, and also from government policy and stuff, is creating like people to relinquish like responsibility from their day activities, and how much do we need to bring that back into our realities, and how does that affect the momentum of trying to keep that hamster wheel going? You know,
The hamster wheel is bigger with the circular economy. I don't buy materials, so the money that I normally use for buying materials can be used for working hours. I will probably not get very rich, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
And people who work with me are happy too. And when I get a scholarship last week, for instance, he was only 1 week in the workshop, and he was working with wood. And then his trainer came and he said he needs to make a call out for management things for reclame. Advertising, and that's his. But I'm a little bit confused. The teacher said. I said, why? I said, I've never seen a workshop like this. And that's why he's working in the back. He doesn't know what to sell. He doesn't know what to ask. he wants to know the whole process. And if you, I get a question very often from customers, what do I do as a seller of office furniture when you start renting your furniture? Then I can't earn any money. So you remain to have your job, only in another way. To get part of the chain, it's going to be a chain. Eh? If for instance, if you build a washing room now, you go to a shop, you say I want a bathroom, and when it's built and it starts leaking, then you go to the same shop and you say, hey, my bathroom is leaking. And then they say, well, it's probably the carpenter, he was drilling. And the carpenter said, no, it was the plumber, he was soldering something, and no one takes the responsibility. If you're in a chain, you're walking next to each other. You help each other. I can't make floors, but I made a floor 1,600 square feet the first time. Only by lending my knowledge to someone who makes floors and delivering him the wood that he needed in his standard machines to get circular. And now he's even going faster than me, because he's building a complete new workshop with new techniques, simpler. He added his knowledge to my knowledge, and then it goes quicker, better, and later on it's easier to get it back. And for instance, Herso chair needs 8 or 10 companies to solve her problem. But if those 10 companies start to work together as a unit and stop selling, that's a very important thing in the circular economy. We stop selling at the end of this year. You can't buy my furniture, my floors, my windows, whatever, at the end of the year. So that means if I promise you a Volkswagen without a diesel scandal, I've got to deliver you a Mercedes or a Rolls Royce. For I don't want you to use the table for 20 years. I want you to use it as antique in the future. It needs to be a table as long as possible.
Yeah. But how does that happen? So yeah, so for example, like if all of the products that we would make would be forever, let's say, obviously this is utopic, but
no, it's not a utopic.
But then there's no more production. So
no, that's not. I think in 50 years, when you are born, you get a paper on your wieg, wait that, on your cradle, and on the paper says this is Jim, and he is going to have 5,000 liters of water in his life, which he needs to take care of, 20 kilos of plastic, half a cubic meter of wood. Yeah, that's really the future, because we've already taken down every mountain on this earth to take any material out of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing left, eh?
Yeah.
And there is no second earth. We need to do it with this earth. I want my children to have it very well, but there are 9 million children coming up in the next 20 years, and they all want to eat. They want a house, they want clothing, they want furniture, and it takes a tree for 150 years to grow. It's the best material which turns the carbon dioxide into something beautiful.
yeah.
And nowadays we use it for a few years with IKEA and then burn it.
Yeah.
But still, the question remains how to get people out of this hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Just because we have a few more minutes for
Okay.
questions, I'm gonna let Sean
Me?
ask the question.
So basically what we are talking about, just to put it very simple, instead of the very linear manufacturing model that buying, selling, throwing, or buying, using, throwing away, the manufacturing units or factories could work as a platform to recycle what they and maintain or whatever what they do. So that's what we want, I guess, more or less. All of you are talking about this.
Yeah, recycling is actually a finishing line going down under. At a certain moment, recycling is waste, and then only burning remains. So you need to upcycle. You need to make it better. That's very
I
important.
understand.
Laura?
Yeah.
So kind of, I guess, along the lines of how we get out of this linear way of thinking, Petra, this question's particularly for you, having worked on the project with the library and having these circular goals in mind. You said you guys did the best you could given budget and time constraints, and I'm wondering what were the areas where you had to compromise, and what do you think would have made it different so you wouldn't have had to compromise? Which circumstances need to change?
I think we could have done better in the area of choosing fabric for the furniture. Some of the furniture were made by a carpenter, and we had to choose. We choose rubber wood for the harder parts. With the fabric we choose, we had to rely on what's on the website from the suppliers, and we couldn't check it if what they claimed was really true. So, but we had to make a decision because of the time, and so we could have done that better. We signed contracts, agreements with suppliers to take back, for instance, the carpet after its life cycle, after 10 or 15 years. And well, I don't know if I'm working at the library in 15 years' time, and so doesn't know the forum manager. So we have to take care that whatever we agreed is handed over very carefully to our to new generation, and we don't know how they think about things, and so I think that's still a challenge. Like we can try to make the right decisions now, but who knows in 15 years' time how to disassemble the furniture, or what we agreed with our suppliers that they had to collect it from the library for free.
Yeah, therefore it's indeed also a good model that the manufacturer stays owner or remains owner of the product and keeps the responsibility for it. Then you don't have to look at it anymore.
So performance, model, payment for the service.
Yeah.
Who you would pay to not buy but just rent a piece of furniture for a certain amount of years? Would you do it?
To keep it, yeah.
Like coming to Wageningen?
It's the perfect situation for so many student situations, is that we all come here, we have nothing, we have to furnish our room or our apartment, but we're only here temporarily. So,
I was just keeping that question for later, but and I think it's very interesting, and I think that in one way or another it's already happening, especially if you look at the digital, like the Internet of Things, for example. They're like somebody said that the new generations are not the generations of possessing, but the generations of using. And look at Spotify, for example. If you pay if you pay 10 euros per month or something, and then you have the right to use something that the value of that belongs to somebody else. And but I wanted to make this question because Rick, in the beginning, you started talking about how you thought about renting your work, but that then the volume that you were your benefit in the end of the month was not enough. So maybe this also poses a question of like the opportunities for starting. How easy it is to start if that is the system that prevails, because then when you start, your level of production is lower.
If there's a company in Holland, it's called Bundles, and they rent Miele washing machines.
Yeah.
And I called them a few years ago because I needed a washing machine, and I thought I checked this website. I called them. I said, you don't have to be very busy, I think. And I was together with a friend of mine. He's also a circular guy. And the guy from Bundles said, well, I'll hang up. I'll call you back. So he wanted to check me. And later on he called me back and said, I can talk to you. He said, well, I don't have a bit. I'm not very busy at the moment. I've spent the money from my children's bank account. I've spent my whole house in my company, and I can't get it rented. And why not? Because I've got to buy the Mieles from Miele. En then I go to the market, and I go to, het bedrijf ook weer wat voor de Rabobank heeft verhuurd, de Lage Landen. And the Lage Landen said, ooh, that's a big risk, because people can divorce, people can have fire, and we add some extra money for aggressive people. And at a certain moment, you got to rent that Miele from him for 9 years, and you pay total price of a new one in 3 years. That's not really fair. Not for the customer, not for him. He said, I'm going to Milan tomorrow. And that night we rewrote his whole company program. And he went to Milan, and he had a meeting at 10:30, and we thought, well, he needs to until 12, and then we have to call it to go at a non-go. And I didn't get him on the phone until 3 o'clock, and he said, well, I'm totally depressed. I had to talk to 20 jakhalzen, hoe noem je dat? Jackals, who only wanted to know how many tens of thousands of machines I would rent the next year. And they only wanted to sell that to me. And they were talking to me, they were going to make the new generation washing machines with new pumps, new soap systems, lower water use. It's actually the best moment to start circular. They don't have, they are no competitor to the traditional market. They rent it. And I made a calculation, if people should pay 10 cents washing wash, then Miele should earn 5 times as much as they do now. And when they get the machine in return in 40 years, the stainless steel is so precious. I got a notification from a wood trader that the prices were going up with 8% now, and they gave the guarantee that they couldn't deliver. That's happening right away. If you build a large factory at the moment, you need to steel with the insulation, and you're not a regular customer, you don't get the material before the end of the year. And that's now. What is happening over 20 years, when there are a lot of more people worldwide? You are the generations who's going to meet a moment like Kaapstad that there's no water, there's no flour, there's no steel from time to time. So you need to rethink your own future.
Guys, we have one more question, quick one. If anyone wants to ask a quick question, if not, I'll use that bridge to ask the final question, but I want to give you one last opportunity. Any quick question?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
It's to Jan. Because you said that you throw out 50 to 80% of the furniture. So I was curious if you have a discussion at Emmaus whether you can fix some of the things a little bit, if you have some guys who have quick fingers in fixing things and then sell more, or is that not feasible?
We fix some things that are, we think of could be sold if they are in a working condition. So that we do, but it is relatively
difficult.
Well, sometimes difficult, of course. When it's too difficult, we don't do it. It's only a matter of gluing parts together, or like that, because much of the furniture has quite a poor quality. So it's not really feasible to do it. And on the other hand, much is offered to us.
Yeah.
We really have
Too
much
much
offerings of furniture, so we can just pick out the best things.
Yeah.
This is the practice nowadays.
Okay, thank you, Jan.
Can I have one very, very quick question regarding that as well?
Quick
so for
question.
instance, if you get a wooden table that you cannot really repair and cannot use it, how do you dispose it? Do you just deliver it to the companies who upcycle wooden furniture, or just landfill?
Right now
Is there a connection?
we bring it to the afvalbrengstation, and there is a big container for wooden articles. We flip it in,
It took me 5 years to get the gemeente Os so far that they are separating the good material for me. I pay them per square meter.
Guys, so I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want each of you to wrap up, to give one final tip for the students on, how can we jump into the circular transition. One sentence, what can be a good recommendation, practical, that we can do every day? So let's start with Petra.
Not really.
Marijke?
Well, a lot has already been said, of course. Be very, very cautious and careful with the planet.
Yeah.
But that's a huge one.
Jan?
Well, I should say you have heard this afternoon that there are many initiatives going on in Holland, and we should just pick out one and join them.
Thank you. Rick?
Just do it. Really, just follow your inner feelings and do it. Start it, and you probably hit your head 10, 12 times. You probably stumble, you rattle your knees, but
Pick
at
up
the end,
and do it.
you learn. Make as much mistakes as possible, because that's the only thing you learn from. And there's no circular economy yet. So everything needs to be learned by any one of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today.